a popular diner in a small American town. Owner is a wealthy CEO who comes undercover to check on staff loyalty, performance, and the true state of his business. Before starting the story, make sure to subscribe the channel so that you don't miss any update in future. He walked in like any other customer. Hoodie pulled low, hands in his pockets. Nobody noticed him. But that wasn't just some guy off the street. He owned the entire place. The diner buzzed like usual. Spoons clinked against plates, someone in the corner laughed a little too loud, and the smell of fried bacon lingered in the air like a memory that refused to leave. The staff? Busy. Exhausted. But faking smiles like it was part of their uniform. Then came him, the man in the gray hoodie. No suit, no tie, no entourage. Just a calm walk to the corner booth. He didn't want attention. Not today. Because today, he wasn't here to be the CEO. He was here to see the truth. And almost instantly, he saw him. A waiter. Young. Dark circles under his eyes. Shaky hands. But that same fake smile plastered on his face like it was tattooed there. "Welcome in," the waiter said. "Can I get you started with a drink?" His voice was polite. Professional. But something felt off. The CEO didn't say it out loud, but he noticed the tremble. The way the waiter clutched the order pad like it was holding him together. And those eyes. There was pain behind them. He ordered coffee, black. And as the waiter walked away, shoulders hunched, steps slow, the CEO leaned back and whispered to himself, "Something's wrong." The coffee came back fast, piping hot, served with a napkin and a smile that didn't quite reach the eyes. "Let me know if you need anything else," the waiter said. But his voice cracked. Just a little. Most customers wouldn't have noticed. But the CEO did. He caught everything. He watched the young man walk back to the counter, shoulders slouched as if carrying a weight that no one else could see. Then, he saw it. The manager. Leaning in too close. Whispering something sharp. The kind of words that sting more than they help. The waiter's face changed. Just for a second. Like he'd been slapped without a hand. Then, just as fast, he straightened up and nodded like a robot who'd been reprogrammed. The CEO gripped his cup tighter. "Why the hell is my staff scared?" he thought. He wasn't here to make assumptions. He came to observe. But something about this. This wasn't just poor management. This was something deeper. Something rotten. He took a sip of the coffee. It was bitter. But not as bitter as the feeling in his gut. He glanced back at the waiter, who was now cleaning a spotless table like his life depended on it. And for a split second, the CEO saw it. Tears. Wiped away before anyone could see. But he saw. And he knew. This wasn't just a bad day. This was something much, much worse. He couldn't just sit there anymore. The CEO got up, slow and casual, like he was just stretching his legs. But every step took him closer to the truth. He passed the counter, pretending to look for the restroom. The manager barely looked up. Too busy glaring at the waiter, who now stood frozen, gripping a tray so tight his knuckles had gone white. Then, from the kitchen, a sound. It wasn't plates. It wasn't kitchen noise. It was sniffling, soft, quick, like someone trying not to be heard. He followed it. The swinging kitchen door creaked open just an inch, and through that narrow slit, he saw him, the waiter, back turned, hands on the sink, shoulders shaking. And then, a quiet sob. Not the kind people cry when they're hurt. The kind they cry when they've hit rock bottom. And no one even knows. The CEO didn't move. He didn't barge in. He just stood there, watching, listening. And for a second, he felt angry. Not just at what he saw, but at himself. Because this was his diner. His staff. And somehow, this kid had been crying behind his walls. Right under his nose. How long has this been happening? Why didn't anyone say anything? He stepped back slowly. Let the door swing shut. His heart was racing. Something was very, very wrong here. And it wasn't just bad management. It was something deeper. something that had been building for a long time. And now, it was cracking wide open. He returned to his seat. But he wasn't the same man who walked in. That calm, undercover demeanor? Gone. Now he was watching everything. Every glance. Every word. Every uncomfortable silence. The manager passed by his table, offering a fake smile. The kind that felt more like a mask than a greeting. "Everything all right with your meal, sir?" The CEO nodded slowly. "Yeah, food's fine. Staff seems quiet, though." The manager shrugged. "They're kids. You know how it is. Always moping around over some breakup or TikTok drama." But that wasn't it. The CEO knew it wasn't that. He forced a smile and let the manager walk away. Then he waited. The moment the manager disappeared into the back, he called the waiter over. "Hey," he said gently, "can I get a refill?" The young man approached. His hands were steady, but his eyes, they told a different story. Dark circles. The kind you don't get from staying up late. The kind you earn from carrying the weight of something you can't talk about. "Rough day?" the CEO asked casually, watching for a reaction. The waiter hesitated, then gave a half-laugh that wasn't funny at all. "It's always a rough day here," he muttered, almost too quiet to hear. That was it. That one line. The truth leaking out in pieces. The CEO leaned forward just a little. Lowered his voice. "You want to tell me why?" The waiter's face went blank. Eyes darting, checking to see if anyone heard. And then, nothing. Silence. Just like that, the walls went back up. But the CEO had seen enough. This wasn't burnout. This wasn't teenage angst. This was fear. Real, quiet, soul-eating fear. And now he needed answers. The waiter's eyes flickered away. A quick glance over his shoulder like he was watching for ghosts. Not the kind you see on Halloween. No. The ones that haunt you when you're alone. When no one's looking. The CEO's voice softened, trying not to push too hard. "I get it. Sometimes life hits harder than a dinner rush on a Friday night." The waiter nodded but didn't speak. Instead, he wiped his hands on his apron. As if cleaning away more than just grease stains, the CEO leaned back and scanned the diner again. The chatter, the clatter, all felt distant. Like he was watching a play unfold behind a glass wall. And then he noticed the others. The kitchen staff, the other waiters. All moving like shadows. Tired. Broken. He remembered something. A whisper from one of the cooks earlier. "Don't ask about him. He's got his demons." Demons. The word hung heavy in the air. The CEO took a deep breath. This wasn't just about one waiter. This was a story about a place. A place that was supposed to be family, but had become a cage. He sipped his coffee again. Bitter. Like the truth he was slowly uncovering. The waiter's mask was slipping. Not just the tired eyes, but something darker. A secret buried beneath years of pretending. The CEO watched closely as the young man wiped down tables. His movements automatic, like a robot running on empty batteries. Suddenly, the waiter stopped. He glanced over his shoulder. Eyes darting like he was afraid someone was watching. That's when the CEO noticed it. A small scar on his wrist. Fresh. Hidden just enough to be missed. He knew scars told stories. Stories people tried to hide. Stories of battles fought in silence. The waiter caught the CEO's gaze for a moment, and quickly looked away, swallowing hard. The CEO felt a pang of guilt mixed with anger. How many times had this young man swallowed his pain, hidden behind that forced smile, while no one bothered to ask what was really wrong? This wasn't just a diner. It was a battlefield. A place where people lost more than just orders, where they lost pieces of themselves. And this kid? He was barely holding on. The waiter wasn't just tired. He was broken. Every fake smile, every forced laugh, felt like another crack in the armor he wore to survive. The CEO watched him from across the room. How his hands trembled just slightly when no one was looking. How his eyes flickered to the exit every time a customer complained, like he was searching for a way out. But the door never opened for him. Not really. Behind those weary eyes was a story no one had the patience to hear. A story of endless shifts and silent suffering, of hope fading with every burnt order and cold coffee. The CEO's mind raced. How did someone so young get swallowed by a place meant to lift spirits? He wanted to reach out, to break through the silence. But the waiter was a locked vault, guarded by fear and shame. And yet, in that moment, something shifted. A flicker of trust? Or maybe just exhaustion giving way to truth. Because when the waiter's eyes met the CEO's again, there was a plea, not for help, but for someone to see him. The waiter moved like a ghost in his own life, present but unseen. His smiles were rehearsed, his laughter hollow echoes in an empty room. The CEO couldn't shake the feeling that beneath the surface, a storm was raging, silent, fierce, and suffocating. He remembered the brief glimpse of the waiter's phone screen. A message that popped up before he quickly hid it. One word blinking like a warning. Help. No one here knew the half of it. This wasn't just exhaustion or teenage drama. It was pain. Real pain. The kind that doesn't fade with a night's sleep or a paycheck. The CEO felt a weight settle in his chest. This wasn't just a diner anymore. It was a prison. And the waiter? A prisoner of circumstances he couldn't escape. He sipped his coffee again, tasting the bitterness not just of the drink, but of the truth sinking in. He had come here undercover for business reasons. But now it was personal. The waiter's world wasn't just behind the counter. It was inside him, a battle no one could see. Every order he took, every smile he forced, was a fight to keep the darkness at bay. The CEO caught a glimpse of the real cost. How this place didn't just drain his energy. It was slowly stealing his spirit. He noticed the way the waiter flinched at loud voices, how he avoided eye contact with customers who demanded more than he could give. There was exhaustion in his every move, but beneath it, something else. A quiet resilience. A hope that maybe, just maybe, things could get better. But hope felt fragile here, like a candle flickering in a cold wind. The CEO knew one thing for sure. This story wasn't just about a meal or a diner. It was about survival. And sometimes survival meant fighting invisible wars. The CEO sat back, swirling his coffee like a man lost in thought. He'd come looking for numbers, for efficiency, for profit. Instead, he found something far more fragile. A human breaking under pressure. A story begging to be told. He watched the waiter again. This time with new eyes. Not just as an employee, but as a person carrying invisible scars. The diner buzzed around them. Clinking dishes, muffled conversations, the hum of tired workers. But in this moment, the noise faded. All that mattered was the quiet pain etched into the waiter's posture, the weight he carried without complaint. The CEO felt a knot tighten in his chest. He wondered how many others in this place were fighting similar battles. How many silent cries were swallowed before they even reached the kitchen. He realized this was more than a business problem. It was a human one. And maybe, just maybe, it was time to stop being just a CEO. The waiter disappeared into the kitchen, but the quiet sobs escaped through the swinging door. The CEO's heart skipped a beat. He followed, careful not to startle him. But the rawness of the moment was impossible to ignore. The waiter leaned against the cold wall, shoulders shaking. Lost in a storm no one had invited him to fight. It wasn't just exhaustion anymore. It was pure, unfiltered pain. The CEO stepped closer, his voice soft but firm. "Hey, you okay?" The waiter flinched, eyes wide, like a deer caught in headlights. For a heartbeat, silence. Then something cracked. The waiter's defenses crumbled just enough to let a whisper through. I'm trying to survive, trying to keep going, trying to hold on to a life that felt like it was slipping through his fingers." The CEO realized right then. This wasn't just a job for the waiter. It was a fight for his soul. The waiter's words hung in the air, fragile like glass. I'm trying. But trying wasn't enough. Not here. Not in a place where every minute felt like a test of endurance. The CEO saw the weight behind those words, the invisible scars that never showed up on any paycheck. The battles fought in silence. When no one was watching, he wanted to reach out, to say something that mattered. But what do you say to a person drowning without a life raft? Instead, he just stood there, offering presents over empty promises. In that quiet kitchen, the air thick with sorrow, two strangers shared a moment, one burdened by hidden pain, the other realizing the cost of turning a blind eye. And somewhere between the clatter of dishes and the hum of the diner, a spark of understanding flickered. It wasn't much, but it was a start. The waiter wiped his eyes hastily, as if trying to erase the moment from existence. But the CEO saw it, the cracks in his armor, the desperate need for something more than just survival. Maybe, the CEO thought, there's a way to help without words, a way to turn this place from a cage into a refuge. He didn't have a plan yet, not a clear one, but something stirred inside him, a flicker of hope, that even in the darkest kitchens, light could find a way in. The diner's noise swelled back. Dishes clanged, orders shouted, lives moving on. But in that brief pause, two worlds collided, one of silent suffering, the other of silent resolve. And for the first time that day, the CEO felt the weight of his title shift. From leader to listener, from boss to human, the CEO looked around the diner, watching the hustle he once thought was just business as usual. Now every face seemed to tell a story of struggle, resilience, and silent pain. He realized this wasn't about cutting costs or boosting profits anymore. It was about people, real people. And in that moment, he made a decision. Not one announced with grand speeches or flashy emails, but a quiet vow in his heart to do better, to see beyond the numbers, to listen beyond the noise. Because sometimes the greatest leadership is about empathy. And maybe, just maybe, that empathy could change everything. The CEO didn't wait for the perfect moment. He started small. A genuine smile when he passed the kitchen. A quick, "How are you holding up?" That wasn't just polite noise. The waiter looked up, surprised. No fake corporate charm, no hidden agenda. Just a simple question that carried weight. For the first time in a long time, the waiter felt seen. Not as a cog in the machine, but as a person. That small exchange sparked something unexpected. A crack in the wall of exhaustion. A flicker of hope that maybe things could change. Because sometimes it's the little things that mean the most. The CEO spent the next few days quietly observing. He watched how the staff moved, tired, strained, but still pushing through. He noticed how the waiter juggled orders, masked his pain, and smiled when no one was watching. There was more here than met the eye. Behind the grease-stained aprons and the clatter of dishes were stories of sacrifice, dreams deferred, and silent battles. This wasn't just a diner anymore. It was a battleground, and the warriors were worn thin. The CEO felt a growing responsibility, not as a boss, but as a human who had finally opened his eyes. One evening, the diner slowed down. The hum of conversation dimmed, and the kitchen's harsh, fluorescent lights cast long shadows. The CEO found the waiter alone, leaning heavily against the counter, eyes distant. This time, he didn't hesitate. He pulled up a chair and sat beside him. Not as a CEO, but as a human looking for connection. "Tell me what's really going on," he said softly. The waiter hesitated, then the floodgates opened. Stories of lost dreams, family struggles, and the crushing weight of never feeling enough. It wasn't just a job anymore. It was a fight to survive, to keep hope alive in a world that often forgot him. And in that quiet moment, something shifted. The waiter's voice cracked as he spoke, each word heavy with years of silent pain. "I came here chasing dreams," he admitted, thinking this was just a stepping stone. "But every day feels like I'm sinking deeper. And the weight, it's crushing." The CEO listened, heart tightening. This wasn't just about a diner or a paycheck, it was about broken hopes, and the fear that some dreams just slip away without a trace. But even in the darkness, the waiter's eyes held a flicker. A stubborn flame refusing to die. And the CEO knew, right then, this story wasn't over. It was just beginning. The CEO reached out, placing a steady hand on the waiter's shoulder. No grand speeches, no hollow promises, just a quiet vow. "We'll find a way," he said, voice low but sure. "Not tomorrow, not next week, but soon. You don't have to carry this alone anymore." The waiter looked up, disbelief mingling with cautious hope. For the first time in a long time, someone believed in him. Outside, the diner's neon sign flickered. A reminder that even the brightest lights need a little help to shine. And maybe, just maybe, this was the start of something new. Days turned into weeks, and the diner felt different. Not because of new signs or fancy menus, but because of something deeper. A sense of hope was finally stirring. The CEO wasn't just a distant figure anymore. He was part of the story, walking alongside the people who kept this place alive. And the waiter? He started to believe again. That maybe, just maybe, this old diner wasn't the end of the road, but the start of something better. Because sometimes, change begins quietly, with one small act of kindness. And if you want to see what happened next, the real test of that promise, well, I've got a video coming up that dives deeper into how the story unfolds. So if you want to stick around and see how far hope can go, make sure you're here when it drops. Sometimes, the smallest acts of kindness can spark the biggest changes. Behind every person struggling silently is a story worth hearing, and when we choose to see each other with compassion, hope can grow even in the darkest places.